Hi, guys. Welcome back to Her Career, Her Way, a podcast where we inspire and empower ambitious individuals by giving them strategies and tools and having honest conversations to help you kind of navigate your journey, your chaotic journey of building one's career in their 20s. And it's hard. And as a fellow 20-something, I definitely sympathize. So today's episode is going to be all about overstimulation. And I feel like in our modern day of age, we are constantly being bombarded with information. I mean, it's just so accessible right now. You can go on TikTok and look something up, or social media, or on the news, or Google, or Safari, and whatever it might be. Honestly, even just on the streets, there's advertisements. And it's just, I feel like we're being overloaded with this information from the external world, that it's really hindering our internal narrative. What are our beliefs? What are our values? What is our purpose in life? What is our meaning? Where is your voice in all of this noise, basically? And I think it's really hard to honestly find out who you are with all of this information being just in your face 24/7. And so this episode is going to be why overstimulation is diluting your personal narrative. It's a big one. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start with a story, and this came to me in the shower, which I'm going to talk about later about how that kind of happens. But before I get into that, let's get into the story. And so I was on the MRT, which we call the train system in Singapore. And I think I was about in fifth grade. So I think I was age 10. And I take the MRT to school or the bus ride, and it takes me around like 50 minutes, maybe 45, 50 minutes. I can't remember, to be honest. It was a long time ago. And funny enough, I saw my fifth grade teacher on that train ride. So back then, I had a Nokia just to stay in contact with my parents, to tell them when I was coming home, where I was, how long, how far I was from home, whatever, basic parent things. And on that Nokia phone, you really don't have much. All you can do is text, and it has a snake game, which shout out to anybody who's had a Nokia phone. You know what I'm talking about. But there isn't much, right? Now with the smartphone, you can have games, you can have whatever you want. But back then, I didn't. So she was kind of asking me after we did the whole small talk, how are you, whatever. She was like, so what do you normally do on the train or bus ride? And I was like, no, honestly, not much. I kind of just sit here, or I play the snake game sometimes on my phone. And she's like, wow. She was like, I would be so bored. I mean, I have to play a game on my phone or something, or read the news or something. Like, I could never just sit there for an hour or 30 minutes just doing absolutely nothing. And I don't know. I think that really got to me now. And now, kind of jumping forward, honestly, I cannot say that I've ever seen a single person not doing anything on the tube. And that's baffling to me. Like, we are constantly on, whether we're scrolling on our phones, listening to music, watching ads, or watching TV on our phones. I mean, we're constantly on all the time. I mean, even in the tube ride, there are advertisements plastered on the walls, on the buses, everywhere. I mean, we cannot get away from anything nowadays. And I think we're kind of losing our ability to just be with ourselves. And I kind of turned inwards to see and audit what I was doing. And I realized that I also have a tendency to bombard myself with a lot of information. And I have a little bit of an obsessive personality, I would say, which I don't know is, maybe we could get into another topic about that. I need to research that a little bit more. But I don't know if any of you guys can relate, where I just sometimes obsess over other people's lives, whether it's on TV shows or my friends' lives, what products they're using, what they're doing with their spare time, anything, influencers, to be honest. Constantly watching days in life. If I watch one, I want to watch another one. I want to see what they're doing. And it's like I lose myself in that because I'm not taking the time to actually reflect on what I want to fill my days with. I'm just looking externally about how they are living their lives. And Instagram and social media is all a highlight reel because you're not really truly seeing the full picture of somebody's lives. They're just putting basically the highlights on the internet. And now we've gotten a little bit more transparent and I guess you could say authentic. That's kind of a buzzword, which I don't love to use a lot. But, we've gotten a little bit more candid, I guess, and honest about our lives, which I definitely appreciate. And I like that direction where social media is headed. But still, you never see the full picture because you're not actually living their life. You're living your life. And so when you kind of obsess over other people, or honestly, even if you obsess over a topic and you just deep dive into it and you're constantly grabbing information, you're looking for the next article to read, you're looking for the next person to say their opinion on this. You're looking for the next study, the next case study, the next finding, whatever it might be. You are kind of losing your own narrative in that process. So, what I've been kind of doing is instead of constantly kind of looking outward for external information, I first do nothing. And what I mean by this is it can be simple things. I'm not, when I go on a walk in the morning, sometimes I'm not listening to music. I'm not listening to a podcast. I'm just purely walking by myself with my own thoughts. If I want to find something out on a topic, I first think, what is the topic that I want to find out about? What do I want to learn? And then I go on the internet to look for different perspectives and see how that resonates with me. After I read that article, I come back to myself and be like, what did I just take away from that? Where is my own voice coming into that and filtering into this information? Now, I know that's a little iffy because of the whole confirmation bias thing where we use our own thoughts and our opinions to then search it to confirm that what we were thinking. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is kind of instead of listening to everybody else's voices and opinions, first kind of understand what you're curious about, what you're even curious about, not your opinion or your perspective on it, kind of just why you even want to look at that topic in the first place, kind of if I want to understand more about running, I'm going to be like, I want to understand more about running because I want to learn how to become a better runner. Then I go and outsource what I actually want to learn about the topic. How do I properly fuel myself before the run? How do I maintain consistency? What does it mean to go do speed runs, hill runs? What are all these different types of trainings that I can do to become a better runner? Things like that. And then after I research one of those topics, come back, try it for myself, see how I feel. How does it feel to my body? So basically, bridging that loop between the internal and external. So first, I'm going to talk about the brand dilution parallel. And as a business student, this just kind of clicked off into my brain. So basically, we have definitely seen brands that have become diluted because they are expanding into new markets, expanding their products without kind of alignment towards their core mission. And that is what is weakening their value and diluting their identity as a brand towards their consumers. Consumers are no longer sure what that brand is actually, what the purpose of the brand is. And so an example of this is Gap's brand logo fail. And this happened in 2010 where they were struggling a lot with sales and they were losing customers. And so one of the ways that they thought they could regain the customer base was by revamping their brand logo. And so they did this and they modernized it, but it did not look like Gap at all. And customers were hugely dissatisfied with it. They didn't like it. They thought it was taking away from the core identity of what Gap was. And Gap was doing it to try to maintain relevancy and be contemporary. But in fact, they are actually moving further away from the brand that the consumers actually loved and respected. And so they reverted back to their old brand in 6 days. So this is where we can see kind of a dilution of a brand, where they're actually moving further away from their purpose and their identity because they are trying to, maybe stay on trend or expand and grow because that's all what we all want to do eventually, especially businesses. They want to grow. They want to, they start at the innovation stage and the early stage, and then they keep on going up and they want to grow. But the hard part about that is knowing how to grow in alignment of the brand that you're creating. And we can relate this to our personal narrative because when we're constantly looking for that external inputs and stimulation without reflection and alignment towards who we are as individuals, we dilute our sense of self. So now I'm going to get into kind of the sciencey bit and talk about the 3 major networks of the brain. And this was discovered by Menon from Stanford. He's a neuroscientist. And why this is relevant is because it's underlying the importance of how we internally and externally focus and where it kind of lights up in the brain and how we can learn from this to apply it to our lives. So the first network is called the default mode network. And this is when you are kind of at a stoplight. I'm going to use that metaphor, and it's red. So you can't go. You're doing nothing. You're in silence, as you would say. Or some people say it's when you are bored. I don't love that word just because I have a negative connotation towards it. Growing up, my parents never allowed me to be bored. They thought you could always entertain yourself with something. But again, words, everything is subjective, so take it how you will. Basically, what I'm saying is that you're at the stoplight, you're doing nothing. And in this network, it is where your internal narrative comes to light. It is where you are kind of able to build your identity, build your sense of self, connect memories to different things that you're thinking about it, and create meaning. It is active during that rest and reflection time. So, an example of this is the moment that you're in the shower, and this brings me back to how my story came in the shower, is when you suddenly realize a story that comes to mind. So, mine was that Nokia phone story. Or when you're suddenly realizing that the LinkedIn job that you've been forcing yourself to apply to just doesn't align with your actual values. So this is really, really pivotal, that silent time to kind of understand yourself and how it connects back to your sense of meaning and purpose in life. And then I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but I want to get through these kind of network systems. So the second one is the central executive network. And this is when you have that green light, when you're going, when you're focusing on those external tasks, when you're doing something, putting your attention and your behavior towards a goal that you're working on. So for example, you're preparing for a presentation, or you're writing a cover letter, or you're in the midst of an interview. So when you're doing the things. Then the third network, which I think is rarely kind of talked about, is called your salience network. And this is the air traffic controller. I would call it probably the yellow light when it's switching between the green to the red. And I know normally we don't have a yellow light when it switches from red to green, but just think about it as the switcher. It's the yellow light. It's switching between red and green. And basically, this is switching between your inner and outer focus. It's deciding what to prioritize, what to pay attention to. And so when this kind of fails, we have performance errors, we have attentional lapses. We can't stop ruminating on thoughts when we're either stuck in one of those different functions. So, for example, is that you are constantly distracted by something, either it's your phone, or if you're in a really busy street kind of and you're just constantly overstimulated and you just can't focus on where you need to go because there's too many people, there's too much noise, there's an ambulance coming, there's sirens, there's way too much. Or when it takes you 3 hours to do 1 hour of work. I've definitely had that happen. And basically this connection crisis that I like to call it is when we are constantly externally distracted by the noise, by music, by TikTok videos, by social media, the news, anything, honestly, anything. It prevents us from activating the default mode network. It prevents us from looking inward and connecting back to who we are as a person, our values, and our meaning. And when there is no default mode network activation, it really harms us from finding our voice. And I think another video that everybody should watch by Arthur Brooks, who is a professor at Harvard, is he talks about the doom loop. And he made a 6-minute video called You Need to Be Bored. And I think it is absolutely life-changing, and I really mean it. And I also found it out through Bella Dane, which I think is another person you should definitely listen to. While I'm saying you need to listen to it, I know it's a little bit contradictory to me saying that you need to stop overstimulating yourself. But these people, I feel like they give really good tips and everything in moderation. I can't stress that enough. Take in everything in moderation. Take in a bit of information and then reflect on it. See how it resonates to you. Take in what I'm saying and see how it resonates for you. Honestly, the reason why I only upload 1 episode a week, well, one, because it's a lot of work to upload multiple episodes at a time. And honestly, I don't think I can do that just yet. Another reason is because I want you to listen to this episode fully and gain what you want to take away from it. Find your own key takeaways. Find how this resonates to you. Because I don't want you to just be taking away my information as the gold standard. And I think we do that a lot nowadays. And I feel like people are utilizing news and information on TikTok or social media or online as just like the be all end all. Like this is the truth. But it may be, and you may find something that resonates with you, but how does it resonate with you? Don't just take it for their word. Don't just be like, oh yeah, because they said that, it must be true. As we were taught in school, kind of, and I don't know if we're still taught in school, but is this a credible source? One. And two, what are the key takeaways from that message that actually is relevant towards your narrative? How does it relate to your meaning of life and your sense of self? I don't know if that made any sense. But anyways, I'm going on a tangent, but back to Arthur Brooks, and he talks about a doom loop. And basically it's talking about how when you're bored, when you're doing absolutely nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, you're not consuming anything. It is very uncomfortable. And you are kind of forced to ask those big questions like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is the purpose of my life? Those big questions that are really, really uncomfortable. And so what we tend to do is we grab our phone or we do something else to try to distract ourselves, to numb ourselves from those big questions. And I am definitely guilty of that. I have been one to numb my feelings a lot, and it has taken me years, and I'm still young, so that's something to say, to actually feel my emotions. And it is so important to feel your feelings because if not, they'll just come back to haunt you. They'll just come, if you know a woodpecker, they'll just keep on pecking on the wood until you actually let it in. So when we are kind of resisting that and we are constantly distracting ourselves, we are never engaging with the meaning of our lives. We're not building that identity. We're not creating emotional connections to what we're thinking about. We're not understanding how what we're taking in from the external is impacting us as individuals, and we're losing our own voice in the process. So this is where meditation is extremely important because meditation and mindfulness helps to strengthen and improve the salience network. The salience network, again, is that yellow light, the light that helps us switch between that internal and external world. So basically, Menon found that when we are engaging in meditation and mindfulness, it increases the functional connectivity between the networks, switching off and on. So I don't know if any of you have listened to Headspace, but one of the first things that I learned from it, a beginner meditation guide, was when we are just sitting there in silence and just things are popping up into our brains, think of them as like clouds. You're not reacting towards it, but you're noticing these things that come up and those thoughts and ideas that are coming up. And you're slowly just letting them go and pass by. So why this is important is because you are maintaining your focus to the present moment, that you don't need to do anything right at the second. Now, you're timetabling this meditation in when you can have that 5 minutes or whatever. You're not just doing this when you're in a car ride and you need to go. No, you're taking the mindful time to actually do this. And why this is so important is because it is kind of bridging that gap between the internal and external focus world because you are seeing these thoughts, not ruminating on them. You're not kind of actively thinking about them. So you're not in that default mode network, but you're also not actively doing those tasks at the moment. So you're not into that central executive network, but you're in that kind of salient zone. And this is why it's so important to practice this mindfulness meditation and do this because it helps to increase that connectivity between them so that when you are engaging in both of these modes, it's easier to switch between them. So basically, I want to relate all of these networks back to your career because this is what this podcast is all about, and I want to make it kind of relevant to that. So how this connects back is, say you're choosing between two job offers. Well, your default mode network needs quiet time to access your actual values, not just what sounds impressive on LinkedIn, not what your counselors are telling you about, not what your friends are doing. You need to understand why you want to do the job yourself. Or say you're unsure about doing grad school after your undergraduate degree. So I know a lot of friends who are doing their masters, and I'm not. And it can be tempting to do my master's because everybody else is doing it, to book a course to learn how to do the GMAT, to, do whatever it is you need to do. Or if you're in high school, do a major that everybody else is pursuing or what your parents want to do. But if you are constantly listening to information from other people about what you should do, this drowns out your default mode's network ability to actually connect to your past experiences, what you like to do, what your passions are, what your meaning is to your future direction. So, this is why it is so, so important to give yourself that silence and that time to reflect on what you have just consumed. Basically, when you can tune in, you can show up as yourself. And this is where I want to talk about that authenticity, that buzzword that is being thrown around left and right nowadays. And basically, what I believe authenticity to be is being true to your why. It's not borrowed from other people, podcast influencers, whoever's talking to you. It is your narrative, your purpose. And that is so, so important to honestly gaining motivation. It also helps to show up in ways that are aligned to your intentions that I've definitely talked about a lot on this podcast. And just honestly connect back to who you are as a person and your voice. Finding your voice in the noise. I mean, it is just so difficult sometimes. It's so difficult. I definitely want to do an episode all about people pleasing, and I'm reading the Let Them Theory book by Mel Robbins. And I just think it is how much energy we give other people and other people's thoughts is just, it's insane to me sometimes. Also, I think something that's cool is when your default mode network is developed, it actually helps you to build empathy with others. And this was founded by Hassan, a professor from Princeton University. And basically, what this means is that you are able to connect with people more authentically and you're able to understand their emotions better. And empathy is a huge skill for not only your career, but in life in general. So I thought that was really cool. Hence why it is so important to develop this network. And in this day and age, I think it's really hard to do that sometimes. Honestly, something else that the default mode network helps is entering that flow state, which we all like. It's kind of that locked in focus mode where we are not distracted by anything else. We are just so focused and it feels so good. I mean, right now, in the midst of exams, in the midst of job applications, it's winter, as I've talked about, we're all wanting to lock in. And how do you actually do that? How do you do that? How do you develop that? Well, it's a skill. And it comes with building your salience network through mindfulness and meditation. It comes with engaging fully in your default mode network and in your central executive network. So it comes with utilizing all of these three networks, which is so important, and actually being present in them. Basically, when you have a strong default mode network, you are better at switching into the central executive network. Your default mode network is honestly looking for the most salient next step when it's properly trained. So each resistance towards a distraction that you have or a stimulation, you are strengthening your salience network muscle, your ability to switch. So basically, it improves your discipline, it improves your focus and attention, it makes showing up feel easier because you are more aligned to your voice and your attentions, and it's not feeling forced. I do kind of want to caution, though, that hyperactivity in the default mode network is linked to negative rumination, which shows up a lot in depression, also excessive worry and anxiety. This is why balance is imperative, because we need to be able to also be in that green light, be in that central executive functioning modes where we're actually executing on those tasks or engaging in that goal oriented behavior. While we do need the default mode network and that silent time for self-knowledge, we can't have constant rumination. We can't be consistently thinking about why. It's important to come back to it, but it's more about observing those thoughts and seeing how we can fuel it towards our next step in life. So, I want to make an actionable challenge for you this week, and this is the 7-day silence experiment. And so basically, I want you to pick kind of 1 to 2 things you do on a daily and kind of doing it without any distractions, just doing that one task. When you're making that morning coffee, not having your phone with you, really just making that morning coffee. Or when you're going for that walk, not listening to anything, not putting any external stimulus in your mind, just purely going for a walk with yourself. When you're working out, maybe put your phone in your locker. No distractions during those rest times. When you're eating a meal, not watching TV. When you're in the shower, not listening to music. Just try it. See how it feels. It can be small. It can be for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be for the full duration of this activity. I just want you to kind of be uncomfortable in that moment. And what you'll notice is you might be extremely fidgety. You might be really tempted to grab that item or grab that phone, listen to that music, do something. But I really want you to resist that urge and see how it feels. And then what I found out when I did this, because I went for my walk without any external information when I was taking a shower, I wasn't listening to anything. I felt a wave of clarity. I started having these random connections, like that story that just popped up into my mind with my Nokia phone. I started remembering things that I hadn't thought about, or a name popped up in my mind that I had been really wanting to know and I just could not remember. I don't know if that happens to any of you guys, but it's so annoying sometimes. It's also very embarrassing when you can't remember somebody's name and they remember yours. But basically, just ideas start clicking because you're giving that space for your brain to just think about something else. It allows space because when you're constantly overloading yourself and over-consuming and overstimulating, you are not able to just sit with yourself and sit with your own thoughts that are coming to you. You're not able to make those connections. So when you do, it's like this wave of clarity comes to you and it feels honestly so refreshing. When you are constantly overflowing your mind with all of this stuff, basically what you're doing is you are becoming everybody else except for yourself. So when you are practicing that adaptive engagement, as what Menning calls it, you're actually helping to engage your default mode network, your sense of self and your identity, so that you can rest and then you can activate your central executive network better. So basically, you can focus, be attentive, be more disciplined. You have that motivation again from understanding your sense of self and connecting towards it. And that's what we all want. We want a sense of purpose because that is what drives us to do the hard work in the times when we don't really want to do it. We show up during the challenges better because we have that understanding of why we are doing it. So it is so important to kind of be in the silence because honestly, the best thoughts, the best strategies, the best ideas come and emerge from the silence. Your best career move isn't the next thing you continue, it's in the silence you've been avoiding because you can't find your path, your voice, your mission, your values while you're constantly downloading everyone else's. I really want to see how this challenge goes for you. Definitely comment down below, share what you're going to do this week. I know it could be uncomfortable, but honestly, just try. Treat it as an experiment. And it doesn't have to be for long. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be the whole duration. Just start small and consistent steps over big changes always, because that is how you're actually going to commit to it. Something that I'm going to be doing this week is being more intentional in the slower moments. So when I go out for my walks, not constantly listening to music. And don't get me wrong, I love to listen to podcasts and I love listening to music on my walks. I mean, I think it's a great way to learn and fit it in, the time that we all have. Really trying to be intentional with what I am consuming and only doing one, only listening to one podcast, not constantly going to the next one and downloading what the next episode is. just consciously consuming one thing at a time. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'll definitely let you know how it goes in the next episode. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. I hope this episode really resonated with you, and I hope you are able to kind of find your narrative again in this world that has so much noise. And definitely share it with a friend who you think can benefit from it. And thank you again for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.